days from now, nobody will stop me from being the one that'll throw the switch and gas you out of this life for good, you son of a bitch!
Get away from her, you bitch!
I'm connecting the bypass circuit now, sir. It should take another half hour.
Captain, one of the aliens has just entered the bridge.
Understood.
We're less than 1 million kilometers from the pulsars. We must...
Hello and welcome to the Women of Nerd Culture and your October edition, the podcast where we celebrate experience of us, the women of nerd culture. This month, we are sinking our teeth into the topic that has captivated audiences across many different genres, many years, which is vampires. And I'm joined by the lovely Sarah this month, and I'm excited. We haven't got Sammy because it is a spooky season and she is just so busy. So we've decided to tackle this as a duo this month. And yeah, I'm excited. How are you doing this month?
The Nerdy Women Massive will be back again.
We will next month, hopefully.
That includes you, Sammy.
Yes. How are you doing this month?
Oh, it's been I've absolutely loved reading this topic. It sent me down quite a few rabbit holes and I can't wait to talk about it, and it's just made me realize a few things.
Yes. I didn't quite realize just how captivated my life has been by vampires. I feel like I owe my parents a lot of apologies for some of my obsessions when I was a child. So, Mum and Dad, this is my apology to you guys. I'm sorry. But yes, this month, subject vampires. I wasn't sure what I was gonna pick. And then I had a lot. I didn't realize how much I had. But should we go with what we always do? Our first experiences of vampires. And would you like to go first?
Come on then. I'm going to start off with a little bit of personal connection to the vampire race. It's kind of a bit more on how I look. For people listening on audio, I have green eyes and red hair. A lot of folklore has red hair, green-eyed vampires. It could stem from the belief that Judas was the first vampire. Judas as in the person who betrayed Jesus.
That's interesting. Didn't know that.
In a lot of the early paintings of him, he was portrayed as having red hair. And so it was believed that, well, he actually unalived himself after the betrayal.
Yeah.
And it was believed that this made him a vampire.
Yeah. Okay. Didn't know that. I'm very interested in the mythology around it. That's an interesting point. Yeah.
So it came as a result of that. It came that if you were born with flaming locks, you were descendant of the original vampire and Judas himself.
Wow.
So
there are whole countries that have orange and red hair and green eyes. That's
the Danish actually apparently have quite a high percentage. Yeah. The ancient Greeks believed that redheads turned into vampires after they died, so they tended to cremate them rather than bury them.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah. The Middle Ages had us as being conceived in blood.
Wow.
Which meant that we were basically conceived while our mothers were having their period.
Oh. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Then, of course, there is the lack of soul and burning in daylight.
Yes, and I feel like some people owe you an apology for the fact that you get that quite often in a jokey way to you. And I do that because for anyone who's audio listener, I have red hair as well. Admittedly, mine is dyed, but I am severely pale.
She's really pushing the vampire vibes on
screen.
To be
fair, I could get some fangs and I could really pull it off this month. So yeah, that's really interesting that you've kind of gone into the mythology, because I just normally think, Dracula. That's kind of where I feel like that's very much where it became mainstream, but it was before that, and you've brought up some really interesting facts around that.
Yeah, I mean, even recently I've been looking at, you're saying Dracula, but I've been looking at buying the book Carmilla Sheridan Le Fanu. I'm sorry if I've butchered that.
It's okay.
But it's apparently the book that inspired Dracula, so it technically is the first vampiric novel. So
Okay.
I'm looking into that as one of my next reads.
Okay. That's interesting. I didn't really think on any of like the books, and it wasn't until we kind of brought it up a couple of days ago that we were talking about like the different genres and stuff,
Mhm.
and sort of my probably first experiences outside of Buffy, because for anyone who's seen Top Grumps knows I might just have a bit of a small obsession with it, is I can remember reading a book series called Night Worlds, and it's by LJ Smith, and she's actually the person who writes the Vampire Diaries.
Hmm.
I never got into the Vampire Diaries. Absolutely love the program. You know, I have a bit of a small obsession with some of the characters on there. But it's the book series that I really, really loved. And it doesn't just have vampires in, but the first stories and quite a large percentage of them revolve around the night world, is what they call it. And it's a book series that it's gone from like 1996. She released all of them very, very quickly. And then unfortunately we've never got the last one. So this book series has kind of been left on a cliffhanger since the 90s. She re-released them in 2008, but there's been nothing kind of done since then.
The
And
ending.
yeah, so I have been, to the point as the fact that I can mention this book, is I've been on a cliffhanger since 1998, probably when I read it, maybe 2000. But yeah, and what I liked about this book series is it kind of gave you the origin of the vampire race. So
Hmm.
it went back all the way to um early humans, you know, when we lived in caves and things like that. It went all the way back to that, and the fact that the first born vampire was a witch who created the vampire spell, and then obviously had then children, but then she created a vampire. So we had like conflicting people. So you had the made vampires and then the born vampires, and it was
Hmm.
just, even now I kind of think back to these stories, and I actually read this book series quite often. They're on my bookshelf in my living room, you know, pride of
Hmm.
place, because I love the book series so much, and I highly just recommend anyone getting to read this book series, because yes, it's a young adult series, but it's kind of stayed with me for like 20 years. um
Yeah.
I think it's a good series. It's a shame it's never been made into a television show like all other
Hmm.
programs, all other books that obviously LJ Smith created, because she did the Vampire Diaries, and what other one she did what's it called, there's another one that she's done, The Secret Circle, which was a show in,
I've not heard of that.
yes, it was a show, I think around 2010. It was done by the CW, you know, when they did all the
Yeah.
young
I
adult, like,
I know the CW well for
yeah,
Supernatural.
yeah. So they created, so you know, this woman, I believe, it's such a shame that she stopped writing, but she did create so much lore around vampires, and even
Hmm.
now 20 years later it's stuck with me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yes, shall we talk about our options that we've decided to speak about this month?
Well, I do have one that I want to shout out as an early memory.
Okay.
Well, right. Little bit of a history, how it flows. If I'm going right back, then my earliest memory of a vampire is Count Duckula.
Yes,
He's a vampire.
he's a
Um,
doc.
a cartoon vegetarian duck vampire brought to life by his loyal servants using tomato sauce instead of blood, and played by David Jason, of course.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was David Jason.
That explains so much.
Of course, I'm hoping everybody is going to sing the theme tune now when we're in the heart of Transylvania. Um, but yes, I loved Count Duckula. I absolutely loved him. Um, I would watch it every day. You know, I had VHS of it. I was the one that had the bright red, big plastic um lunch boxes with Count Duckula across the front for when I
Oh
went
my
to school.
goodness, that's
Oh
amazing.
God, I loved it so much. In fact, you know what? I want to buy a T-shirt with Count Duckula on. I'm going to do that after this podcast. um, but that's my personal earliest memory. But then, of course, you can't forget things like Count Von Count from Sesame Street.
I had a moment that I was like, is that the vampire from Sesame Street or is that not? But yes,
He's not just the Count, he is actually called Count Von Count.
yes. Yes, and
Uh,
I think it's very, very hard for us to not include him in this list because
mhm.
he is very pivotal to most of our childhoods if we were alive in the 90s. And probably the early 80s because Sesame Street has been going
Yeah.
on for so many years.
And
And
I'm
the
a
fact-
big Jim Henson fan.
Really? Really?
Might have mentioned it before.
I
Might
don't
have
think
mentioned
so.
it
I think this is new to me. But
before.
yes, Count from Sesame Street. That's a really good
Yeah.
one. And I find your choices really interesting because they're not ones that I would have thought of. They're so great. And I love the fact that you've thought on these so well. I'm trying
Oh
to think
God,
of
I went down so many rabbit holes
you
when
did,
thinking
and
about
I'm
this.
I'm
I really did.
impressed. I didn't quite go down that as many rabbit holes because I decided that when I was doing this that I had my set vampire was going to be, I'm sorry, Edward Cullen. Okay, I am sorry. Okay, I will hand in my nerd card at the end of this, but
You like what you like.
I like
There's
what I
no
like, and
toxicity in fandom.
yes, and I still like the books. Okay, I very much love vampire books, but Edward Cullen and Twilight series had a hold on me for a good 5 years when the films were coming out to the point that I can remember going to the midnight screenings.
Wow.
Yeah, oh yeah, I was that person. I used to finish work at Asda on like 10 o'clock on the Friday night. I then would go pick up my best mate, drive back to the cinema, and be there at like 11 o'clock to be first in line so I could watch a midnight showing of Twilight
Hmm?
because it
That's
was
dedication.
that is dedication. If anything, I am very dedicated to my fandoms, and yes, we all know that Twilight is not the best. There are a lot of toxicity around it.
Mhm.
But I very much enjoy it as a series because it did bring vampires and certain aspects to the mainstream more than I
Yeah.
think any other film series has ever
Mhm.
done.
Mhm.
Um,
I kind of find that like they seem to, you know how people keep saying like fashion repeats itself.
yeah,
I find like similar things in like just culture as a general.
yeah.
And vampires have definitely done that a few times because you've got like obviously you've got like your Nosferatu, then you've got your Hammer horror ones, then you've got your like your Lost Boys and that from the 80s,
I
and
was
then
thinking of
you've
like the
got
interview with the vampire.
yeah, you've got like Dracula from 92 and Interview with a
Yeah,
Vampire and I think it was 94.
roughly, yeah.
And then you've got your Underworlds,
Yeah,
which is coming into your 2000s, and then you've got your things. It's just kind of like keep doing that, like up and
yeah,
downhill. So,
yeah. But I
um,
think it's not necessarily movies that are doing it now. I actually think it's more TV shows
mm,
because I feel like we've got some very, very good vampire TV shows that have come out over the last decade.
mhm.
We've had Vampire Diaries, we've had the originals, we've had What We Do in the Shadows. We've got all these amazing vampire shows, and not one of them is alike. They take different
And we've got the
aspects.
remake of Interview with the Vampire as a
That is
TV show,
amazing.
which I haven't watched it yet,
It's
but I
amazing.
am going to watch it very soon.
It's so stunning.
Mm,
That is the only way I can describe this program. It is stunning, and I will highly recommend that anyone watches it because
mhm.
it is so good. What they've taken, like the source material, they could have done so much with the program. But I actually think it's better than the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's 10 times better than the movie.
Okay. Okay.
But do you want to link it into your first selection?
Um, I mean, Interview with the Vampire was one of the things, because like I found that um after Count Duckula, I don't remember there being many vampires kind of like from my childhood through the teenage years, really,
Okay.
because coming up to the Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula was 1992, and I was what? I was a little bit too young to watch it at that point, as
Yeah.
I'll have been what, 9,
Yeah, because you're a couple of
maybe
years older,
10.
aren't you?
Yeah. So it was a couple of years after that came out that I actually finally got to watch it. Although I did watch Interview with the Vampire pretty much on release.
But I do
Um,
think that we watched a lot of programs that we shouldn't have in the
oh,
90s.
definitely, definitely.
It's a different vibe back then, you know.
Hmm. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of where I went after that. Once Interview with the Vampire was out, I then found Dracula, and although it was an awful rendition, I'm really sorry, Keanu Reeves, I love you, but that accent was awful. Um,
Yeah, it really
um,
wasn't the best.
it opened my eyes to how good an actor Gary Oldman was, because I still have Gary Oldman as one of the best
You
portrayals
do?
of Dracula.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, that was kind of like a mini shout out. That's not actually one of my choices, surprisingly. um, I found out that I've got this thing about naming things after vampires as well. When I was writing the me notes for this, it's like, hang on, my son's called Alex. My friend pointed out Alexander Skarsgård. Oh, my favorite vampire. You named him after that. I was like, well, yeah, the character's called Eric, but you know, um, I've named rats after them. I've named, you know,
It's not necessarily vampires, it just proves how much nerd seeps into your life,
Mm,
you know, how much your fandoms
I
mean to you that
wanted,
they seep in.
I wanted to name my daughter Mina.
I like that name.
I wanted to name her Mina. It did become a middle name, but I wanted it to be our first name.
I actually have a character on one of my game name get one of my writing games named that, so I can get that. I can completely understand that vibe.
Um, but yes, again, right. So I chose. I had to choose somebody from the show that was the inspiration for us doing this episode. I had to.
Should we tell the story of how this
Well,
episode came about, to be fair?
yeah, well, it was. Let's just come out with it first of all. It's the show's True Blood, and it was explained in our last episode as well. But me and Becca went to a Comic Con in Sunderland, at the start of September, and we happened upon a table that had lots of lovely, shiny graphic novels on it, and we wanted a copy of every single graphic novel that was on that
I
table.
did buy one.
I know you did buy one, but I didn't. I wanted to buy all of them.
I know.
Um, but there was ones from Star Trek, there was ones from the X-Files, things like that. The one that me and Becca both went, what? Was the True Blood one.
Yes.
And then we went off on our merry way going, we should do an episode on True Blood. We should do an episode on True Blood. But can we just do an episode on True Blood? Maybe we should expand that to vampires.
Yes. So this is how the Spooky October episode came about, because we wanted to do something spooky, but we didn't want to just do one thing. And obviously, this is how this episode became a thing. We decided that we were going to do vampires because we've both been so influenced by vampires.
But yes, so there are a lot to choose from in True Blood, whether you're looking at the books or you're looking at the TV show.
Yeah.
But I went with Pam.
Oh,
Pamela
best choice.
Swinford de Beaufort, or Pam Ravenscoft, depending on where you know her from. Played by Kristen Bauer von Stratton. Now, how vampiric is her name
That
in
is an
real life?
amazing name.
She has an
Some people
amazing.
just have an amazing name, and that is one of
Yes,
them.
yes. I mean, you've got the books by Charlene Harris and the TV show by HBO. I think it was Alan Ball that did it. They've got Pam's origins as different. Like, she was made in different years. She was made in different places. One of them, she was a Victorian woman. The other, she was a madam running a brothel. But no matter which version you look at, she was turned into a vampire by Eric Northman, who is played by Alexander Skarsgård.
Yes.
Um, She's his right-hand woman. She's got so much sass. I like how she plays the role. She's got the black PVC outfits on when
Yes.
she's running the club, when she's in the club of Fantasia,
Yeah.
but she hates the outfits.
She does, yeah.
She would rather just be wearing a pastel suit.
Yes.
She loves pink and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, she's just kind of like, it's not the typical vampire outlook on clothing.
Yes, but she kind of
Um,
does it for Eric so
yeah,
that it's the persona.
yes, yes. Um, she actually co-owns the club as well. She's not just the right-hand person. He made her kind of like equal in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
Um, she well, I've lost my train of thought there. Oh, she loves her fashion. But while she is second in command, she also has shown that she can take the lead easily as well.
Yeah.
Because there was episodes where Eric lost his memory and she just stepped up and just went for it.
Yes.
And she was also the stand-in sheriff for the area as well, who is like in control of vampire affairs
Yeah.
for that area. She's got a morbid sense of humor, but with a sweet but lethal charm. She can be cold and uncaring when dealing with people in general. Just
Yes.
doesn't like people.
I can relate to that. I understand that.
She has brilliant timing and delivers some great one-liners with a completely straight face. I've got an example here of one that I really I really liked. Now I'm going to give a little bit of context. This involves the character of Lafayette. Lafayette was one of my favorite characters in the show as well.
Yep.
Played by Nelson Ellis, who unfortunately is no longer with us.
Yes.
Now I thought he was absolutely perfect for that role, and I'm so glad they made more of Lafayette in the show than they did in the books.
Yes, because obviously in the books he passed away like in the first couple of pages, didn't he?
The first book, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm glad they made more of him. But anyway, so Lafayette had been dealing vampire blood, which becomes like a drug to get high off in the show. But he wanted to try and stop doing that.
Yeah.
But Pam paid him a visit to say, no, you're going to continue selling it. And now Lafayette calls a lot of people hooker. And he says to her, he basically says like, hey hooker, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And she pins him to the wall and says, I don't know what it is about me that makes people think I want to hear their problems. Maybe I smile too much. Maybe I wear too much pink. But please remember that I can rip your throat out if I need to. And also know that I am not a hooker. That was a long, long time ago.
I love her. I
And she
love
says this
this
with a
character.
completely straight face. And she doesn't actually smile.
To be fair, the actress that plays her, I've listened to a podcast with her and is it what's the person's name? It's Deborah Ann Wall.
Oh yes,
Um
Deborah.
they do a podcast where they did a rewatch of True Blood, all the True Blood episodes, on a podcast called Truest Blood. And I just love the actress. I think she does such a good job to the point that obviously when I was listening to the podcast, I went back and looked at roles that she'd done, and I didn't realize that she'd played so many roles. She'd done what has she been in? She'd been in Once Upon a Time that I hadn't realized.
Yes, Maleficent.
I just did not connect
Yeah.
that she had been in that. I don't know what it was, but I didn't realize.
I was like when I saw that, I saw True Blood first and then Once Upon a Time. When I saw that, I was the Leonardo DiCaprio meme going,
yeah,
TV.
yeah, yeah. And you know, she's been in Star Trek. She's been in Jag. What else has she been in? She plays a lot of sort of she's been in the Justice League, like the early 2000 edition of that. She does a lot of voice acting as well, to be fair. I didn't realize sort of kind of how much voice acting she did, but yeah, I think this actress is amazing and she does play the role so well.
Yeah. But that's probably my favorite quote from her anyway. But while we're here, I'm going to give Charlene Harris a shout out, actually, and just rag just a teeny bit. Because I actually met her at a crime writers festival in Harrogate a few years ago. She was there for another one of the series that she was writing. I think it was the Aurora Tea Garden ones. But anyway, I was gifted 2 bottles of True Blood when the show was on. It was the actual bottles used in the show, like the ones that you see in the cabinets in the bar. And it's not blood by any means of it. It's actually a blood orange carbonated drink. And I thought, I'm gonna have to try one. I'll keep one, I'll try the other. And it was so sweet. Like it made my face squish up like as if you were sucking on a lemon.
Oh,
Now for context, this affects me really like a lot more because just for context, I've been type 1 diabetic for over 35 years and I've drank diet drinks that whole time. So for over 35 years, apart from the odd orange juice to bring a low blood sugar up,
yeah.
I've not drank full sugar pop or soda. So it really, really went made me go, ooh. But I had to try it anyway. You've got to, haven't you?
You've got to try it.
Anyway, I was asking Charlene if she was given any and if she tried it. And she said she had, and I said I thought it was a good flavour, but the sweetness was too much for me. And she turned to me, put her hand on my shoulder, and in a broad southern drawl, she said, "Ooh, honey, you ain't drinking it with enough vodka."
I can imagine it. I can literally just imagine it.
Yeah. Now I'm no good at accents, so I wasn't even going to try and do that, but yeah, just
Oh,
imagine that in a really nice southern drawl.
yeah, I can imagine it.
But yes, anyway, I have said True Blood bottle here. My camera keeps going off. It does not like me.
There we go.
There's the True Blood bottle. And I did get it signed. You can't quite see it, but it is down here in black pen.
Yes, we can just see it.
I can't even lost it yourself there.
It was there.
There.
Yeah, I can see it.
It's on that side. Anyway, trust me, it's there. She signed it.
Yay!
It is there, I promise.
That's cool.
But yes, just before I finish on that bit, I'm gonna make a shout out to another character from the same show as a little add on there. And it's somebody we've already mentioned. It is Jessica, played by Deborah Ann Wall, because I just love Deborah Ann Wall.
I love her.
She's Ginger, of course, in the
Yes.
show. And she is the introduction into how vampires are created in this world and how they learn. She's sympathetic and doesn't come from the best background when human.
Yeah.
But she's open-minded still. She's brave. She can be sweet and innocent, which makes it really easy for her to become a killer.
Yes, so much.
Although she does still have a few mishaps early on, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Bill is away one weekend and she needs to feed, so she gets somebody to feed on.
Yeah.
And accidentally kills them.
Yeah.
But she doesn't know many vampires and doesn't know how to get rid of a body. So she rings Pam, which links her in with my original choice.
Yeah.
Now, Pam is busy in a slightly compromising position with another lady in the club.
Yep.
Busy. But she still goes and answers the phone. And basically tells her to go to the shop and get a chainsaw. But then Jessica turns around, looks in the room where the body was, and finds that there's no body. So Pam ends up telling her that she's panicking because there isn't a body.
Awkward.
But yeah, so I love it. It's just kind of one of those learning curves. You could, to be honest, I could see many a vampire having the same issue.
Yeah.
And it wasn't accidental draining, by the way. She did have a willing volunteer who was going to feed her, but she accidentally went too far, she thought.
Yes.
And of course, outside of that role, Deborah herself is a very nerdy lady. She's very into Dungeons and Dragons,
Yes.
DMs campaigns, had a few shows about it, including Relics and Rarities. She's now a published adventures,
Yeah.
creates her own, and has appeared on Critical Role. And there's a clip online, which I absolutely love, of her teaching John Bernthal, who plays the Punisher, how to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant clip.
Yeah. And I didn't realize until I was looking into her because she was potentially going to be one of my choices. Just how involved she is in D&D. I did not realize just how nerdy she was. It's made me feel 10 times better about my nerdy obsessions, I'm not gonna lie. But yes.
Yeah, she seems like just a genuinely lovely person. Alton Christian.
Yes. It's my turn, isn't it?
It is.
Okay, so this wouldn't be me if I didn't mention Buffy in some way.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be me. But I thought, oh, maybe I'll pick Spike. Maybe I'll pick Angel. No, I have picked Drusilla because I went to a Comic-Con last year and I was fortunate enough to be sat there and Juliet Landau walked past me and she is beautiful. She is so stunning, and I just didn't realize it was her because she has like she had a little short bob, like very much like mine, but hers was a lot more stylish. Hers was it was classy. But she plays the vampire of Drusilla so well. For anyone who doesn't know who Drusilla is, she is one of the most intriguing and complex characters from the Vampire Diaries because of how she's been made into a vampire. So originally she was a very, very pious, very, very innocent young woman in the Victorian England. She wanted to be a nun, but she was unfortunate, has the ability to see the future, but all she could ever see was tragic events, making her believe that she was evil. And unfortunately for Drusilla, she met Angelus, who is the evil version of Angel, and he became utterly and totally obsessed with her innocence and her abilities. And he systematically went around and tortured her family to the point that she lost every single family member. And then he decided to turn her into a vampire on the day that she made her holy orders, which completely drove her insane. And I get really, really annoyed with how people perceive this character because everyone makes fun of Drusilla for being insane, but no one ever blames Angel for making her that way, even though him as a character admits that he did that to her. But she's such an amazing character. Sometimes you have to just appreciate the bad guy in this. But she is completely unpredictable. She's erratic. She's very, very childlike. She makes very cryptic statements that she made a lot of cryptic statements in season 2 and 3.
So she kept her powers after becoming a vampire.
Yes, she kept her powers. She had her abilities afterwards, and obviously that made her even more insane. But she also developed her powers, so she was able to hypnotize. So she actually used that ability to kill a Slayer. She used that ability to get rid of one of the Slayers that was activated after Buffy was drowned by the Master. But she used that ability to get rid of Kendra. And Buffy very, very much underestimated this character. She, even though she had the normal vampire abilities, she had the basically living forever. She's vulnerable to sunlight and all those type of things. But she's one of the only vampires that's ever been shown as unwell. So how we actually meet this character, she's very unwell, and that leads Spike and Angel, when he's turned evil, to find a spell to bring her back to health, and she's brought back to health, but then she becomes this very, very strong vampire, and she uses her ability to manipulate people. Like she sees things in the future that might not necessarily happen, but she manipulates things to make them happen. And she sees things that happen years and years in advance. A lot of the statements that she makes in season 3 and 2 and 3 don't actually happen to season 7, and
Right.
season like 2 of Angel, because she then eventually appears in Angel. So it's really just a really complex character, and I love how dysfunctional she is,
Hmm.
but she's just a brilliant character. Her and Spike are very, very dysfunctional. They have a relationship, and obviously Spike's very devoted to her, but she then has a really, really lingering obsession for Angel, like to the point that she refers to him as daddy because he's the one that made her a vampire. But then she refers to his sire as grandma. And it's just some of the things that she comes out with as a character. I'm just like, oh my goodness, like the way that Juliet Landau portrayed her is it's stunning. And I just adore this character. I didn't realize just how much I adored her until I was watching some of them back. But yeah, so like she only appears in sort of like season 2 of Buffy, and then I think a little bit of season 3, and then she kind of appears in season 5 of Angel. I didn't kind of realize it was that far ahead, where she remakes Darla into a vampire. So then it becomes she then kind of goes into this whole ramble about whether Darla is still her grandmother or whether she's now Drusilla's. Yeah, it's one of those really random things, and you're just like, yeah, this is complicated. Even I'm not getting it. But yeah, Drusilla, I think for the fact that she's just so insane, I really just love this character, and she's one of those characters that you kind of fear, but you also really pity,
Mm.
because she's an unsettling presence, but she's also got such a tragic backstory, and she's very much like a juxtaposition of like feelings that she kind of creates. And yeah,
Yeah.
I love that about some of the vampire characters, because she has some of the abilities that are shown through other mythology and legends of
Hmm.
vampires, but it's not in the way that you would expect it to happen.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so Drusilla,
It's
that's
yeah, it's like slightly different take on it, especially if she's had the powers before being a vampire,
yeah,
because a lot of it is like glamour and
yeah,
foretelling is afterwards, isn't it?
yeah, and
Mm.
she's just a fantastic character, and
Yeah.
Juliet Landau is just amazing. She's very much an indie actress now, but some of the roles that she do is it's just brilliant. And
I have I saw like people coming out of that Comic-Con saying how wonderful she was, especially.
she was just so sweet.
Hmm.
It was just unreal. But that's been I tried to find some quotes for Drusilla, and the only one I could really find is when she goes to Spike. She goes, "Do you love my insides? Parts that you can't see, eyeballs to," and then he replies, "Eyeballs to entrails, my sweet." And I'm just like, that is completely bonkers, but that kind of sums up their relationship, and I'm just like, oh, that's adorable.
If you go on at things like that, you kind of like this might be a bit far fetched, but you look at it like Kathy and Heathcliff at that. Like I love the very bones of her and
Yeah,
stuff
I
like
very much
this,
feel
and
like the writers of Buffy very much took that approach with them, because obviously it's
mm,
very, very gothic. You know, Spike and Drusilla are very, very gothic. She wears childlike clothing, Victorian childlike clothing. She has like a China doll that she calls Miss Edith, that she
hmm.
kind of carries around with her like a child would have done in the Victorian ages. And it's such a good character, and I love the fact that even when obviously Buffy ended, they brought the character back for the comics. And
Hmm.
yeah, you don't realize it's Drusilla until it's too late. That's the only way I can just that she is deadly. She's one of the most deadly characters on Buffy, I feel, and she just doesn't get enough respect, because people make fun of her. They think of her as this weak character that is insane, and she's probably one of the most deadly because she doesn't have that restraint. She doesn't have that. Yeah.
Kind of makes me think of Agatha all along.
Yes. Yeah.
Priscilla all along.
She would fit into that clothing.
Yeah.
No issue. Yeah, she would be absolutely fine. But yes, what's your second choice?
My second choice is the character itself might be the surprise, but the world that I'm choosing from shouldn't be so much of a surprise
Okay.
because I don't think you can really talk about vampires without mentioning this person.
Okay.
And it's Anne Rice.
Oh, yes.
You can't really
No.
she just like wrote about so many different vampires and all that you can't really talk about them and not mention her.
Yeah.
I mean, Bram Stoker's another one, but yes.
Yes.
This is who I'm choosing.
Yes.
From the world of Anne Rice, I'm going with Akasha.
Ooh.
Who is the first vampire.
Yes.
Now, again, also played by Aaliyah, who died tragically in that plane crash, but she does such a wonderful job.
The potential in that role,
yeah,
the things that she could have gone on to achieve is it's sad, and it's just amazing that what she could have done.
I'll be honest, I wasn't a massive fan of the movie either, the Queen of the Damned movie, but I have to give credit where credit is due. She did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
I like this vampire because it kind of touches on something that you've already mentioned in a different context, and it is the creation of the first vampire in Anne Rice's world. It's kind of like Akasha herself was a good person to start with.
Yeah.
She did not become a good person in the end.
No.
And it's not about that. It's about how interesting I find the character.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that what she did was good in any means of it. I find her story interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of like just where all the vampires come from. She is an example of when someone has lived so long that nothing interests them anymore and they just become empty.
Yes.
She was a token of peace brokered by marriage to a prince called Enkel.
Yeah.
In, I think it's like 4,000 years BC in what would now be Iraq.
Yeah, it's vaguely there, yeah.
Is it Kemet? Kemet would be kind of like Iraq area.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah. She became a just and forward-thinking queen. She tried to turn her subjects away from savage cannibalism, because there were like outer tribes that did that basically.
Well, yeah.
And they also took part in ritualistic cannibalism as well, and she wanted to get rid of cannibalism altogether. But she was trying to encourage them to eat the grain that was being grown on the farms and things like that. But unfortunately, she becomes a victim of the storyline, and ultimate power corrupts ultimately.
Oh, yeah.
She becomes paranoid and interested in spirits and things like that. Because the more that she pushes things like this, the more enemies that she makes, the more that she thinks people are after her. She's trying to like get spirits on her side. She's trying to broker peace with the outer tribes. Excuse me. She invites some of them with ritualistic cannibalism in to like also speak to the spirits and see if they could broker some kind of like agreement. But yes, they basically refuse. Namely, the leaders of the one particular tribe, again, ginger twins, Maharet and Makara. Now, yeah, these were originally witches, so that's similar to yours, but it wasn't Akasha herself who was the witch. They refused, basically, so soldiers were sent to their village, basically to kill everybody. But they found the twins at the funeral of their mother. They were about to eat the mother's heart and brain as part of their ritual. And it was kind of like you eat these to intake all of their memories, all of their life
Abilities.
essence.
Yeah.
Yeah, to carry that person on. Um, so yes, the soldiers go and kill everybody except the twins and arrest them on cannibalism charges. They are subjected to jail time, humiliation. They have horrible things done to them by members of the guard. And it's all on the orders of Akasha. However, they were allowed to go home after all of this ordeal and just to live with the outcome of that. One of the twins summons a spirit to enact revenge, and it harasses Akasha and Enkil to drive them mad. It's just kind of like lingering around the castle, banging things, keeping them up all night. But the spirit sees a chance when one night some nobles from the outer tribes sneak into the palace and stab Akasha and Enkil to near death. The spirit sees Akasha's soul leave her body, grabs it, and twines with it, and re-enters the body, and this makes her the first vampire.
Yeah.
To save Enkil's life, she also turns him into a vampire, and basically it becomes a curse, and Enkel and Akasha's bloodlust is so high, the curse must be spread among more and more people to reduce their hunger.
Yeah.
So instead, the hunger gets spread over the entire vampire population.
Which is a fascinating route to take.
Yeah.
Because I don't know any other fandom other than maybe the Vampire Diaries television show that they do it, that they're connected. Obviously, the original vampires are created, and then obviously their bloodline. That's the only ever thing whenever I've looked into the first vampire and Anne Rice's series, that the story ever kind of comes anywhere close to the depth that she's put into creating like the first vampire.
I mean, this is like most of the book.
Yeah.
Most of the book is. But yeah, she so again, yes, it's similar because like Akasha has kind of psychic tendrils in every vampire that's made, so she kind of like is aware of them, although some do later learn how to turn their thoughts off to her detecting them.
Yes.
There's a whole further story about what actually happens coming up to it, but I don't want to go too deep into it because I could talk for ages on it and it'll spoil things if anybody wants to actually read the books, although the books have been out for an incredibly long time.
It's about 30 years, isn't it?
Yeah. I think they were kind of like late 80s.
Yeah.
I think the Vampire Lestat was a good few years before, but I think
Yes.
this one was kind of like late 80s, early 90s maybe. But yes, so eventually Akasha just becomes tired with life and sits so still that she just becomes a statue. She is a living statue and is cared for by the elder vampires until Lestat, yes, that Lestat, is actually brought to visit Akasha and Enkil as statues in there. And he goes down one night against his maker's better advice, and he goes down with a violin and plays music, and he wakes Akasha up with music.
Silly vampire.
Yeah. But yes, so I just love the fact though that she wakes with music, because
See, I didn't realize it was a violin because I think in the movie he's in a rock band, isn't he?
yes, at first it is a violin for the first time he wakes her up,
right?
But then she kind of like he does wake her again with rock music at many years later.
Okay, that's where my confusion is.
Yeah. So
it's been a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, music is for me such a big part of my life. Like a lot of my past memories are surrounded by music. I go to a lot of gigs, well, not so much now, but I used to go to a lot of gigs. Music means a lot more to me. It's such an empowering thing, and I mean, like you see it in day-to-day life as well. You know, if somebody's in a coma, they play their favorite
Yeah.
song, and sometimes it wakes them up.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, story happens, and then she is reawoken again many years later by the rock music that Lestat now makes. Um, but in the end, she does a lot of bad things when she wakes up. She is eventually defeated, but something is in place to ensure that the vampires don't die out with the first being defeated. Again, it's to do with the twins, but I'm not going to say much more than that.
Yes.
Because honestly, I might as well read the whole book to you at this point. I just thought that, it was a well thought out story.
Yeah.
It's not to everyone's taste, especially the movie, and I get that, but it's not often that you get so much detail into like in an individual's take on the
Yeah.
creation of a race so iconic as vampires.
Yes. It's such a good, it's the lore around Anne Rice and her vampires is, I would highly recommend anyone looking into it because it's fascinating.
Hmm.
And I think very much she was the mainstream writer for her era around vampire lore and vampires in general. I don't think I've seen anything that's had such a similar sort of similar influence on any pop culture or anything like that
Hmm.
compared to her in a very, very long time, until we get to like Underworld and Twilight and things like that. It's fascinating, it really is, because
Yeah.
she's a great writer, and I do really like her writing style and stuff. But yeah, I think I just wish that more people would read the books of hers first before they kind of watch the films, so that you can kind of get the full
Yeah. You've
what's
got
the
the option now, but I do admit I did watch the movie first.
okay.
You see, so because yeah, it was the movie that what was that? If we're going off 1994, I'll have been like 11, 12.
Yeah. And that's not me bad mouthing. I think you need to have the full experience.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You need to have a balanced view of it all.
Well, that was it. I made sure that I read Queen of the Damned before seeing the movie Queen of the Damned.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, there was a long period between like Interview with the Vampire and Queen of the Damned, so I did have
Yeah.
plenty of opportunity to do that.
I was gonna say, because like that Interview with a Vampire came out in what? It came out in the 90s, but
94, I think.
yeah, but then the Queen of the Damned didn't come out until what, early 2002. It didn't come
2000s?
out
Yeah.
2002. So yeah, it didn't come out for a very long time. There was a big lull in vampire movies from her. I think the only film that I can remember being in between those time was Blade.
Yeah.
That's the only film I can think of that kind of had
So
any type of influence.
that is one of our lulls that we were
Yeah.
talking about. But yes, I mean, I personally, like I said, I didn't enjoy the movie massively. Um, I wasn't sure that Stuart Townsend was the right fit for Lestat. I didn't think he had the right look.
Yeah.
Because I know like creativity and stuff like that, but to me, because she went into so much detail about how Lestat looked, it was obviously very important to her.
Yeah.
And Stuart Townsend did not look like Lestat.
I think it was because he was very much in his gothic era, because obviously he appears in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen
Yes,
just
Dorian
after this.
Gray.
So I really kind of feel that very much they kind of had that vibe around him,
Hmm.
and they were like, oh, okay, he needs to appear in this,
Yeah.
because he then appears in sort of Eon Flux, and what's the other one that he appears in? He doesn't really appear in much after that. But I can remember specifically as a role
Hmm.
of his.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think he was very much in his gothic era then.
Hmm. Yeah.
Should I
Yeah.
say my next one?
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, go
Go
on then.
on. Go
Okay,
on.
so my next one is a little bit different because it's actually a vampire that's kind of influenced me as a parent. Okay, because
Intriguing.
my daughter has an obsession with this vampire. So that means I spend quite a lot of time watching this vampire.
Mm-hmm.
And this vampire is Vampirina from the animated television show on Disney that started in 2017. And it's based actually on a book series called Vampirina Ballerina and written by Anne Marie Pace. And it kind of combines elements of supernatural adventure, lessons in friendship, acceptance, and being yourself, but it's wrapped in a very, very kid-friendly, spooky package. And I absolutely love the fact that we have something very gothic that I can share with my tiny human. But these vampires that are in Vampirina are very, very different than what your run-of-the-mill vampires are, because she's got very pale blue skin, she's got pointed ears, she's got very large purple eyes, she's got fangs, and she wears iconic bat-shaped pigtails. And her outfits are very typical of black and purple and spiderweb patterns. But she is the sweetest little vampire that you will ever meet. She's sweet, she's curious, she's very optimistic that she wants to be friends with the humans because her family have moved from Transylvania to Pennsylvania when her family have created a monster hotel. Sorry, monster B&B. And you kind of get visits from other vampires, you kind of have witches, you have werewolves, you have ghosts. So there is very much just a whole world that they have created in this television show. You've got things like the vampires in the show can do magic, which you don't get often. They can do proper like spells, and they've got wands and things like that. They've kind of got the whole world, and you know they've got they drink blood, but they don't. They do something. Yeah, I'm trying to think now. They don't drink blood. I'm pretty sure they don't drink blood, or they drink sort of
Blood.
Yeah. I'm actually now thinking
The synthetic stuff.
because I could have picked. I was very unsure whether I was going to pick Vampirina or whether I was going to pick Isadora Moon, and I think I'm going to talk about both because it's not just me. You know, they are influencing the future of my tiny human. They're influencing her, and Isadora Moon is very similar. She's a little girl that lives in. I think these books are based in the UK, but they're very much marketed as you don't quite know where they are located.
Yeah.
But it's another little vampire, but this little girl is half vampire, half fairy. She's very into ballerina, and it's such a good thing. And I just love the fact that these are little spooky packages that I can share with my daughter, and she does kind of learn some life lessons, whether she wants to or not. But yeah, so Vampirina, she's just very sweet, you know. She tries to keep her supernatural identity secret from the humans in the life. Obviously, it doesn't quite happen that way. But she kind of a lot of the things that happen, like they have Girl Gaiden. And she tries to join in with Girl Gaiden, because she did it back when she was in Transylvania, and it doesn't quite work out how she knows. And just some of the themes that are in this program are just so sweet, you know, about friendship, inclusion, problem solving. And it's just I really enjoy watching these programs. You know, they've got such fascinating names. They've got Boris and Oksana Huntley, you know, that's what her parents are called. And then you've got very human names of Poppy Peopleson and Bridget as Vampirina's friends. And then you've got Demi, who's a friendly ghost that lives in the Hauntley's B&B. And you've got Gregoria, who's a wisecracking gargoyle. But just the world that they've created is just so fascinating. And they do kind of very much go back to, like, they've got counts and countesses, but they're not the same as what we know from like Count Dracula. It's an inherited title that they pass down. But yeah, it's just one that I've just found fascinating, that I'm finding that there's a lot more markets for younger children now
Mhm.
for little vampires, and I don't think we've seen that since we had the little vampire in the 90s with,
Mona as well.
which one?
Mona the vampire.
Oh my goodness, how did I forget Mona the vampire?
I
Mona
was
the
I was a bit too
vampire.
I was a bit too old to really appreciate Mona, so I don't know an awful lot about her.
I've actually been watching Mona recently. So Mona, for anyone who doesn't know, she's a little girl with a big imagination that she imagines herself as a vampire. So I think she gets her parents' curtains. She uses that as a cape. She plats her hair so that she's got crazy hair. So her hair is all over the
I remember
place.
it all sticking up, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. There is a lot of market for
But they
children.
don't come around very often though.
They don't. No, they don't. Isadora Moon, I think, is the big one for now
Mhm.
because it's. I think it's more over here because I think Vampirina is probably more American. I think it's very much marketed for over there. But yeah, it's one of those, and I would give tell anyone that has a tiny human around 4, 5, 6, 7, and you've got Disney Plus, give Vampirina a try. You might like it. There's some songs in it as well. It's musical, and some of the songs are still stuck in my head that I could possibly sing them if I had some music. But I'm not, because no one needs to do that, especially our audio listeners. You do not need that. But yes,
Come
do
on.
you have
I sang.
we sang, did we sing last week? Was it last week we sang, or the week before?
Well,
The
I
month
sang
before?
Count Duckula as well.
Yes, you did. What did we sing? Did we sing Captain Planet, or was that just me?
I did join in a Captain Planet sing song.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, we did.
I don't
Okay,
know if
so
that was last week, but not last week, last time.
last time, yes. Do you have another one that you want to share?
Not really. No, I've kind of like I went kind of like with 2.5, so I'm going to count
Yes.
Pam and Jessica as my 1.5, and I'm
Yeah.
going with the Akasha for the second one.
I have some
Um,
honourable mentions.
I do have some honourable mentions.
Go on then. You get ahead and say yours.
Well, I mean, I mentioned it before, but Dracula, the Gary Oldman one, deserves a shout out.
Yes.
He does. He does.
Yeah. Well, I would be worried about you if you didn't speak out about them.
Especially Gary Oldman.
Yeah. I'd be worried. I'd be getting in my car and coming to check that you were okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, this led me to reading Bram Stoker's classic, and I even looked into reading his grandson, Dacre Stoker's book.
Oh, I didn't know that was a thing.
It's technically a sequel.
Oh, it's a bit like that, is it?
It's technically a sequel. It's all right. It's
Yeah.
not as good as the original, of course, but yeah.
Well, yeah.
Mhm. Again, as I was saying, it's kind of like led me down a lot of books. This, so kind of like I've read the Anne Rice ones, I've read the Charlene Harris ones, um, I've read the Stoker ones.
Yeah.
I am also going to shout out another one that I've read the books of.
Okay.
I read the book first in this case. Um, I really enjoyed Let Me In and Let the Right One In.
Oh, yes. I like them.
So the character is called Abby in the American version because one's the original Scandinavian one story and one's an Americanization of it.
Yes.
And she's played by Chloe Grace Moretz.
Yeah. Such a good role. She's such a good actress, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean it's a slightly different take on it. It's like I mean, you get to know in the Anne Rice world that it's forbidden to make a vampire so young. They've got to be an adult,
Yes.
basically, to be allowed to live.
That's actually something that's in a couple of different fandoms. So
Yeah.
Twilight's exactly the same.
Uh-huh. But Abby is basically stuck as a 12-year-old girl. And yeah, she's just kind of like it's about how she survives and how she comes to make friends with like a boy in the block of flats where she's living and how he kind of becomes her Renfield, I guess.
Yes, very much. And
The equivalent of a Renfield in
Yeah.
that time, like finding her people to eat,
yeah,
and running away with her and stuff, basically while he's lugging her around in a box.
Oh.
What? What?
That was Chris making a very sneaky appearance because I clicked onto a different screen because I was trying to get something for later on, and that's why Chris has now made a feature in the podcast.
Oh.
Hello. Sorry.
Well, I didn't notice him, but hi, Chris. But yes, um, yes, I really enjoyed the unfortunately I can't remember the author's name right now. It slipped my mind.
Oh, I can't remember either, but
yes,
it's good.
I have several of his books up there. And I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, he didn't live to see how popular it became either. There seems to be a theme going because we also lost Anne Rice the other year.
Yeah,
This is kind of a theme,
it
unfortunately,
is.
has to
It
do
is a
with
theme,
vampires.
unfortunately.
But yes, I really enjoyed his book, and it led me on to reading his other books as well, like Little Star and Handling the Dead and things like that. But of course, in modern day vampires, how can you not shout out Celine from Underworld?
Yeah.
I mean, Kate Beckinsale, those
How?
outfits.
How did she do those outfits? I
Yeah.
need to know her secret.
Those outfits. Um, ooh, it's a different take. It doesn't show the vampire as a villain necessarily. She is the hero trying to maintain the balance
Yeah.
whilst in the middle of an ancient war.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, and it's a very, very good film series.
Mhm.
Are we on like sixth, fifth?
I've lost count. I haven't seen them all. I haven't seen them
Yeah.
all, but I've seen the first few.
Yeah, and it's a very good. Well, the amount of money that it's making, the fact that they keep bringing them back,
Yeah.
It's got to say so. But yeah, Kate Beckinsale, it's
Mm.
we would be remiss if we didn't mention our girl Kate Beckinsale because she's fantastic in that role, and I really just love the fact that they haven't recast her role as she gets older. They are
Yes.
just making her more and more badass. She could have been definitely one that we spoke
She
about.
could have been a badass woman.
Yeah, and to be fair, she is.
Yeah.
We don't need to speak about her in that podcast to acknowledge her. We acknowledge Kate Beckinsale being badass that she is. Yes. We got any more honorable mentions?
I'm busy watching What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, that is a good honorable mention. That is actually one of mine.
There are a lot in there, but
Yes,
I'm going to be honest. I am kind of enjoying the TV show, but I do prefer the movie.
Yes, I think it's very different. It depends on which one you've watched first, I think.
And we all know how much I love Matt Berry.
Yes, we heart Matt Berry on this show so much, because he is our hero, and maybe we need to do an episode on him.
Oh, we could do a Matt Berry episode.
I think we need to do an episode on him. Yeah. Yeah, we're doing one. That's going on the list. But yeah, no, I think the vampires that they show in What You Do in the Shadows is a different concept again, because they've got different rules, and they've got different laws, and they've got councils, and I think everyone should watch it.
Can we just shout out the council?
Yes.
Can we just shout out?
Go on.
Wesley Snipes, Tilda Swinton, Jermaine Clement, Dave Bautista.
The council it's the who's who of actors, and every single one of them is amazing.
And every single one of them have played vampires.
Yeah, it's just the concept that they did in this is it's just so fascinating. And it was actually going to be one of my honorable mentions as a show, because I do think it's that epic. But yes, I have an honorable mention in Barnabas. Where have I've forgotten how to say his surname, so I need to look at it quickly again. Where is it gone? Barnabas Collins. Okay. Because
Dark Shadows.
Dark Shadows, yes. I like both the movie that Johnny Depp was in, but I also love the television series. because it is such an iconic television series from the 1960s. And it's a very, very gothic soap opera that kind of it's really fascinating. I would highly recommend, if you enjoyed Dark Shadows with Johnny Depp, is to watch the series, because Barnabas Collins in the series is just so epic. You know, he's born in the 1700s, and he's basically a wealthy and influential person in the town that Collins for, basically his town. And his story is just so tragic. He fell in love with a woman, but then a witch fell in love with him, and then the witch turned him into a vampire, which I feel like is very much a theme of vampires, that they are turned by witches.
Definitely got some kind of witchiness
Yeah.
involved at the start.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I just love Barnabas Collins. I think there's been three variations. You know, there was a show in the 90s as well, the movie, and then obviously the show back in the 60s and 70s. And I love the fact that this was a show in the 70s. It's not something that you would expect, because I don't remember seeing anything like that on television. But they did it, and it was an American show of all things. And it's very gothic. You know, Barnabas Collins is very conflicted in his morality. You know, he's very much a tragic anti-hero. That he can't quite quench his thirst. But yeah, he's definitely got to be an honorable mention, because I do think that Johnny Depp did a good thing with the character. And who else is my honorable mention? Yes. Well, I hinted at the Night World. You know, the books from R.L. whatever her name is. Can't remember what her name is now. The Night World books. I've lost my trail of thought there. By L.J. Smith.
Maybe we're being glamoured.
Yes, I do. And to be fair, I also think it's because it's very late. But yes, I just kind of wanted to do an honorable mention of Fier Descoudres. I apologize for the fact that I have completely butchered that name. I can't say it. I've tried. But like, he is a very, very poignant character in the Night World series, and he is, you know, he's the second made vampire. And he's the co-founder of like the Night World. He's a co-founder of Circle Daybreak, which is basically a coven for everyone, whether you're witches, whether you're vampires, werewolf, everything human. You know, you can join this coven. He tried to promote peace, and that's not something that you kind of ever see really in shows. And I just think the fact that he has just got such a complex history. You know, he's born in prehistoric times, and he was part of a tribe, and the fact that they don't shy away from the fact that he has been alive for that long, but he is very much he hasn't let it make him cold, because he has a soulmate that reappears every sort of 30 years, but she never makes it to the age of 17. So but Maya, who is obviously the first maid vampire, she kills Hannah Snow every time, but she uses her ability of glamour to make it look like it's him doing it every time. So this woman has had this many lives, and I love the fact that this vampire hasn't been made cold. You know, he's hopeful even after he's had a millennia of this happening to him over and over again, of losing his soulmate. And it's just, I am a sucker for a love story. I'm a complete sucker for a love story, and I love this one. And have I got any other honorable mentions? I don't think I have any more honorable mentions. I think we've kind of done the whole scope of every kind of different variant of vampires.
I mean, there are many, many, many,
Yes.
many. So I'm sure there's like somebody will point out wolf.
Yes. So if you have a honorable mention, or there is a vampire that you think that we have missed, that that you would like to maybe see us feature in another episode, later on, drop it below. We would love to hear your thoughts, to the point that after this episode, you might see a special feature that we're going to be trialing. We have got some friends of ours who would like to share their favorite vampires.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to give a big shout out to the boys, the men of the Women of Nerd Culture, because they answered the call and they have made videos for us for the end of this that we hope that we will be able to continue in our next episode. Oh, would you like to tell everyone what our next episode is going to be?
I've got a question for you first.
Okay. Oh.
How do you think you do as a vampire?
Oh, that is a good question. Well, seeing I don't really sleep at night, I think I'd be okay. I think the only thing that I wouldn't like, I would have to be a certain type of vampire. So I would have to be a vampire from Vampire Diaries, so I can have a day ring, so I can still go out in the day. I think I would be okay because, yes, they drink blood. I think they still eat in that one, and they don't overly seem like they have a bloodlust, apart from when they become a heretic, or apart from when they become a heretic vampire. So I think I would be okay in that universe. What about yourself?
I've pretty much said I'm part of that anyway. I would like to have like the healing factor again. Although I am a very tired person pretty much all the time, I don't sleep very well either, so being up at night isn't a big issue.
Yeah.
Although I would miss garlic if you go by that theory.
See, no, we need to be in a universe that we can have garlic. We need to
I
be,
know there are universes that isn't
I'm pretty sure the Vampire Diaries is that, and holy water doesn't work either, because Damon goes into a church and he picks at the holy water and he dabs it on himself. So I know that doesn't work. So I think that's probably one of the best ones that we could.
I haven't seen the Vampire Diaries, so maybe that might work for me. That one.
Yeah. Yes, but let's hear people's comments about what vampire universe they would like to be in as well.
Where would you like to be? How would you cope? Who's your favorite vampire? That kind of stuff.
Yes, but yes, should we tell them what it's going to be in November's edition?
November's edition. I don't think we've got any particular reason for doing this one next, have we? Other than it was next on the original list we made.
Yeah.
We are going to be talking about sci-fi,
which is possibly my favorite genre after zombie films.
Yeah.
So I think we have a lot to talk about for that one. It's gonna be a good one. So that would be November's edition, and then we'll have to see about December, because we haven't decided what we're going to do for December. Whether we're going to be doing something Christmassy,
something seasonal, or should we just stick to the list? We haven't decided yet.
Yes, but there are a couple of events coming up, aren't there? So Graham has got another quiz. It's going to be
Velvet Snatch.
It's going to be a horror edition of the quiz at Geek Retreat. They don't have a date yet firmly put down, but that we had the best time.
Yeah, it's looking at the 12th or the 19th of October. He still needs to finalise the date, but it's Geek Retreat in Sunderland, because there are a few in the area.
Yes, but we had the best time going to the last one, so highly recommend going, because it's all for charity, and it's a really, really good night. And we came third. I'm really excited that we came third.
There's a quiz, there's food and drink available, there's a raffle, we played bingo.
Yeah, because I won the bingo.
And we were home by 9 o'clock.
Yes. Well, to be fair, we were home by about 8:30.
We were home by earlier than that, but yeah.
Yeah, we were home pretty early. We're getting old and we're parents. We don't do late nights now. Yes. Is there anything else that we want to say?
There's the Nerds Live.
Oh yes, Nerds Live. That's what Thursday is that? Which is that?
Do you have details for that?
No, because that was why I was trying to get up, and obviously Chris then decided to feature.
At the Globe in Newcastle, I know that much.
Okay, let me see
if it's available.
Yes, I'm gonna find it. It's gotta be handy. But yes, it's gonna be live. It looks like it's gonna be an absolute blast. I'm really jealous that I cannot go, because I really do.
I don't think I can make that one either.
No, it's a Thursday night. We can't always do things like that, but it does look absolutely amazing. I'm just still trying to find it because that's what I was doing. Let's have a look, see if I can find it, and try not to bring up anyone's videos. Sorry, Chris. Chris is obviously features quite a lot in this, so you know, I just want to shout out the people that did do a video at the end, because obviously we had Chris, we had Joe, we had Paul, we had Jake. They've all done.
Jake's done one, I think.
Yes, Jake has done a video as well, so that should be absolutely hilarious. I am excited about that. I'm still scrolling, trying to find. Why is it so far down? Paul, you need to put it out more. All right, there we go. It is. Why doesn't it tell me? It just tells me comment. Oh, November the 14th.
Right.
I thought it was sooner, but I'm excited. It's a shame that I can't attend, but it should be an absolute blast because you've got Sammy there, you've got Paul, you've got Jake, you've got Sonoise.
Sonoise are there, yeah. Sorry, we've called him by 3 different names. Graham is Sonoise, is the Velvet Snatch.
Yes,
they are all one person.
Yes, he goes by a lot of personas, but he is fantastic, and he's one of the best humans that I've ever met.
I think Adam's going to be there as well.
Yes, Adam is going to be there himself, so that should be
20-foot tall Viking.
Yes, so yeah, that should be good. But yes, please watch the videos at the end. Have we got anything else to say?
Have a spooky season.
Have a spooky season, and keep your hearts full and your fandoms fierce, and we'll see you next month. Bye.
Women of Nerd Culture, this is Jake from Gaming Up North, here to talk about my favourite vampire. So, I'm not really the biggest vampire fan overall. Like, I don't think they're that cool of a monster, because I like my monsters, and these guys look a bit like humans, so that takes away monster points for me. But anyway, so I'm going to pick specifically Dracula from Castlevania series, because he is monstrous. He can turn into a monster. He shoots fireballs, teleports. He has, like, you know, cool anime magic powers. He also lives in a giant castle that's full of every, like, you know, horror trope monster you want. You know, bats, flying, Fantasia furniture, gremlin men, Medusa heads, fish boys in the sewers. But yeah, in his castle appears every 100 years, so he's got a cool curse thing going on where he, like, terrorizes everyone for a while, unless the Belmont comes and lays the smackdown, which they always do. But yeah, and also he has this awesome voice line, very Shakespearean. He's not like, "Welcome, children of the night." It's more like, "What is a man? A miserable pile of secrets." So yeah, he's got a aplomb. Is that a good word for it? But anyway, yeah, Dracula, Castlevania.
Hello, women of nerd culture. I've been asked by the beautiful Sarah and Becca to do a video for you. So yes, they have requested me name my favourite vampires. So it's kind of like the impossible question. It's like naming your favourite toy or favourite toothbrush, because everyone's got more than one toothbrush, haven't they? Yes, they do. Sorry to be all weird on you there, but yes, a favourite vampire, it's such a hard one because there's so many different types of vampires. There's like the B-movie, the high-class, glossy, modern horror vampires. Then you've got like the TV from What We Did in the Shadows, like the comedy vampires, or even like the cartoon, like Count Duckula. Like, how can you just name just one? So I'll give you a few. So I'll spoil you, nerds. Yes, I will. So yes, I would go with Nadia from What We Do in the Shadows, because she's fit, she's amazing, such a badass attitude, and that accent is just wow. Yes, you can't go wrong with like, say, one of the greatest performances, Gary Oldman's in Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's just absolutely amazing. Christopher Lee's Dracula in all the Hammer movies is just like, it cannot be touched, especially when he's up against Peter Cushing's Van Helsing. Always entertaining. But again, I do like some of the stupid vampires as well. If you go like Fright Night or even Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie, it's full of hilarities and just great films, great castings. and great vampires. So yes, the only one to say not to be, and just to be careful of, because if you ever get near him, he'll suck your soul. Don't be a Colin Robinson. No, he'll bore you to death. Don't be an energy vampire. Please, leave me alone. Let me out of the box. Right, stay nerdy, everyone.
Alright, women of nerd culture have asked us who my favourite vampire is, and I've actually picked a very relatable one. Colin Robinson. He's young, he's cute, he's regal, and he knows how to party. Anyway, bye.
Evening, I'm Joe, and I've been asked by the ladies at the Women of Nerd Culture podcast to talk about my favourite vampire. One of my favourite TV shows is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The show has no shortage of vampires, with honourable mentions such as Bones, Crazy Eyes, Jailbait, and Goth Mummy. My favourite vampire, however, is a blonde, neutered little biter who wants to live their afterlife to the absolute fullest and who has a prominent role in both Buffy and Angel. I'm talking, of course, about Harmony. Harmony's a great vampire because in the canon...
You die, and a demon sets up shop in your old house, and it walks, and it talks, and it remembers your life, but it's not you.
But when Harmony is sired in a blink and miss it scene at the end of season 3, she doesn't really change. She's still the same lovable airhead we've grown to love, only now that she's evil and stuff. Meaning the demon that took over her is either that much of a ditz or is stuck in the abyss of her mind. To say she's got a heart of gold is accurate, because it's pretty, shiny, it's cold, and it doesn't move anymore. She can fight. She can really fight. She has minions now.
Harmony has minions.
You can knock people out and put them in a cupboard. Interrogation.
Come on, you hussy, spill it. Okay.
She can sing. She's not afraid to put our boss in his place.
No, because you have no soul.
I would if you had confidence in me.
This is why Harmony is my favourite vampire. But you know, for a second.